Hey everybody, welcome to the Sessions Canceled podcast. Everybody somehow forgot their dice, so sessions canceled. Today with me are Isaiah.
Hey, what's up?
Matt.
Hello there.
And Josh.
Konnichiwa. I couldn't think of anything else. I'm sorry.
The rage. Can I just say, despite that horrendous first try, we actually all marked on time that time. Can we talk about that? That was amazing.
No, we can't. No, generally not supposed to. Sam, take us away. I refuse.
Hey, what?
The mark there is just so that we line up in the.
No,
editing.
I know. Look, we've made jokes about how we never start like all together at the same time anyway. So like that curtain's already been pulled, like episode 2.
All right, fair enough. Anyways,
This is a weird. What up? This is a weird intro. How we doing?
That's why I'm trying to pull it back, Josh.
Pull it back.
Well, it's your dungeon daddies here again to mess things up.
No, we don't. No,
we can't use Dungeon Daddies. That's another show.
Is that another show?
So I was gonna just bring up 17.8%, but you know.
Oh, we can't. Don't get canceled. Actually, we will be canceled.
Pull it back, not throw us into orbit.
I listened to the trebuchet. What do you want? Anyways,
the trebuchet method. Classic.
Yeah. That's how we're gonna get Matt into Fuji.
All right, I just gotta shave my head, grow my beard out, call myself Keemstar, and there we go. Oh no, sorry, I gotta be. What?
Dear Lord.
Meme star. There we go.
No,
with an M.
no, you can't do your stupid naming conventions too late.
No. I'll let it slide. You'll be meme star. Anyways, so today's topic is, well, about dice. When we should roll them and when we should have players roll them.
So wait, Sam, might you say, gotta know when to roll them and know when to hold them?
My goodness.
So if you guys hear about how two Americans fell into Mount Fuji in a few months, you know why. Anyways,
it's gonna be me and Sam murdering Josh.
Come on, that was a good goof.
All right, yes. Anyway,
strong goof.
Yeah, it's strong enough to get you sent to Mount Fuji. Anyways,
yeah, something like that.
So I've run into a few times where I've been like, did I really need to roll for that? And I'm sure all of you have run into that as well. But I've also felt like there are times when I, as the DM, I'm either rolling too much or rolling too little. And sometimes games don't really like to, how do I say this?
Guide you on this?
No, I won't say guide, but don't really have good ways to handle it, because let's, for instance, say that you have an enemy in D&D, a monster, if you will, that makes it so that players have to roll a certain save every time they start their turn in a certain radius. One is fine, because then you're only making the roll so many times. But then you have so many of them that you're like, all right, well, do I make them roll for every one of them, or do I make them roll for one of them? Or if there's different monster types, how do I handle it? Because, you know, when you design an encounter, sometimes you don't think about those things. And then one round becomes rolling 16 saves before the actual turns start.
Is this a call out?
No, this is just a specific thing that I thought of.
Call out.
No, because
I feel like I'm getting attacked.
I mean, we talked about this in length because you're like, I didn't realize until after we started the combat that this was going to be a thing. And that's kind of why I thought of this, because I mean, there are other instances where your DM makes you roll to do literally everything, and then there's the instances where the DM realizes, oh shit, if I do this as rules is written, I'm gonna have to make my players roll for their saves every like 3 seconds, which is frankly annoying.
Yes. Before we get into the weeds, I feel like I ask this every time, what spurred this thought on? Out of curiosity.
I'll be honest, I was scrolling through my list of ideas and I was like, oh yeah, I've recently gotten to the habit of, I like to roll for specific instances or events happening because I don't it adds a little bit of randomness. It makes it a little bit more ad-libby. I don't have to plan out so much like whether or not it's gonna fucking rain. And I'll do that in the background. For instance, in my Monday game, I mean, I also asked evens or odds when I rolled the die, and then had the players have a little hand in it. But like I rolled some dice to be like how the weather is going to be, if they're going to actually encounter the thing that I have planned, or if it's just going to be fake out, which it was, by the way. It turned into a fake out. It was pretty funny because they were nervous the whole time. They were like, something's going to happen. He brought up a battle map. Something's going to happen. Nothing happened. Not a thing happened. I'm like, excellent. Now that I have them in the palm of my hands, they'll never know what to expect. But like, you know, that's a personal thing. I don't do that with every little decision I make, but like, I was thinking about that, and then I saw my topic idea and was like, yeah, you know what, we'll talk about that, because I know that some of us have some either past traumas or have
strong
dealt
opinions.
with strong opinions, or have dealt with the aftermath of fuck, I just made my players roll a whole bunch, because yes, it does slow down combat a lot.
You know, it's funny when you first mentioned, when you said in our chat, you're like, oh, I'm gonna I want to talk about, like, you know, when to roll them and when to hold them, as it were. I wasn't even thinking about combat. Like, because combat generally, when you roll, is so heavily like encoded, right, and predetermined. Not predetermined. I guess predetermined. Because it was combat in a lot of games is so specific, and the rules for when you roll and when you don't are so set in stone. I don't even think about this with combat as like an issue. But
yeah, so
the idea of the saves and stuff, it's like,
you could
interesting point.
You can streamline that. You can, and it's also like, it's the same reason why they streamlined initiative. I don't remember which edition, but like, because it used to be that you had to roll for every single creature in combat, even if they were the same creature type.
I think that's still like the norm in 5e now. Like most people,
it is the norm in 5e. I don't remember if it was the norm in 4e.
Well, I think that's rules is written in 5e is like,
it is rules is written in this 5e. Yes,
but most people.
It's in the DMG.
No, rules is written in 5e is if you have multiple creatures that are the same thing, they all share an initiative.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It is rules is written.
Yeah, no, Matt was saying that it's rules is written that every individual creature gets an initiative. That's not.
I thought that was rules is written. Everybody else was just saying, no, that's dumb.
No.
No, that's not rules.
They don't do that. No. Rules is written is if you have 4 goblins and then 2 bugbears, the bugbears get an initiative, the goblins get an initiative. That's it. That's the rules is written for 5e.
That's in the DMG.
I think 4e also did it that way. But I don't remember.
I vaguely remember. I would have to look at the rules again.
I might pull it up real quick. But you know.
Yeah. But my point being is that, you know, streamlining certain processes helps combat become. Yes, it's unfortunately combat is very flowcharty, and there's no real way to get around that unless you make every ability like super viable and every like particular class viable and cross-classing viable. It just becomes very flowcharty. But streamlining that flowchart can make it so that there's more time to actually do like role play things in combat, or not spend 3 hours on a single combat encounter. Josh, I know we were new at 4E, but like combat did go on forever, and that's no fault of your own. That's just the way that it was, because it was super board gamey.
Well, yeah, I mean, 4E, I think also was an edition where combat was particularly long, but it also didn't help that none of us were familiar with the rules, so the things that would normally be snappy were not.
Yeah, and combat combat being long is kind of a thing that happens in most TTRPGs.
I mean, yes, but I think 4E was
particularly long, and then like I just think that streamlining the process, and not necessarily like it's not required to do it, but if you know that an encounter is going to be doing a thing over and over and over again, it helps to have a streamlined process for it. But if it's not going to be like a constant annoyance, like you have 5 people with noxious aura, but they're all different creatures or some shit, like, because then you're like, well, their DCs might be different. At that point, I might just be like, all right, I'm gonna make it the highest DC, but you only have to roll once, because I don't know, it gets annoying when you have every player roll.
That's a way to do it, I suppose. Yeah. Or if well, I don't know.
It's hard.
I'd have to think about that one.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to even like really think about, but it does help with the flow of combat, the whole process, and it might make those encounters actually fun to play through instead of, all right, now roll your save, because even the DM gets annoyed after the 5th time they say, all right, everybody, roll a Constitution saving
once I
throw.
realized how many con saves I was asking for with that fucking Blue Zao encounter, I was like, Jesus, Jiminy Ham.
Yeah,
like,
seriously.
I was saying, it's like, oops, all right, I threw 5 of them at you guys. All right, everybody make me 5.
It wasn't just the fact that
it
wasn't just the fact it was the 3 blues out. I didn't realize the Babus had basically an identical ability. Not identical, but very similar ability.
It was very similar.
That was also a con save.
Yeah, and Josh, I'm not calling you out. I'm just using this as an example because combat isn't really thought about, and there's a reason why I have problems with combat in most TTRPGs, because it ends up being, it almost feels like it's an afterthought half the time, because the combat is like, it's not very snappy unless you're like in a group of people who's like been playing for God knows how long. And even though we've been playing for over a decade, Josh, it's like sometimes combat is hard. Me as a warlock, I'm like, I have the 3 things that I have to do, and when I think about what I have to do, I'm like, all right, it's number 3. Like it's not hard.
So I mean, that's somewhat class determined, but also I think 5e does kind of, that's just kind of how it rolls most of the time.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I think that that was kind of what they were going for, so mission accomplished in that idea.
Yeah.
Did I ever tell you about the grapple fiasco that happened with Joe?
That is another example.
Quite curious about this,
because grappling is pretty awful.
Joe, my buddy Joe, I love the guy. However, this is the one time where I wanted to pull my hair out. It was the entire encounter where it was different waves of monsters, but they were specifically monsters that every time they hit you or did something, you have to make a grapple check every fucking time. So it was like, I was on a beach too, so it's like, all right, giant crabs, oh shit, okay, roll, every time they hit you, which they fucking hit really hard, and then you're grappled, and it's like, all right, fuck, well, I have to waste my next turn getting out. Then we killed them. Then a bunch of alligators showed up.
So wait, are you saying like this is just something he used a lot?
No, it was just a one time, like, it was like for a one shot or a mini campaign he was doing. It was like this one encounter during it. And I remember specifically because it was me and the other players were so kind of aggravated because it was literally just grapple checks. It was the monsters were trying to grapple us, and they had abilities where, the alligator, it does a bite attack. Oh, now it hits you. Now you're grappled. And it's like doing damage and grappling us. And because we're grappled, half of us would be restrained because the monster would say you would be grappled. And so it was literally us every other turn. Well, it was the monster. It wasn't the grappled condition. It was the monsters had the ability, like when it would say in the stat
if they
block,
hit you, they grapple you.
Yeah, they grapple you, and if you are grappled by this way, you are restrained.
Oh, okay. I was about to say, I
believe the shambling mound has that.
Yeah, so I think it was like, the crocodiles or giant alligators, whatever. I think we fought a shambling mound or an octopus or something like that. And then the last one was the water elemental. And every single time we were all like, for the love of God, just kill me already. Just stop touching me.
I mean, that's kind of what I'm getting at, because it's like,
even if a mechanic's cool, if you just fucking hammer it in 5 times over, it's gonna get annoying no matter what mechanic.
It becomes a pain in the ass.
Yeah. Especially because you don't have, like, if it hits you, it grapples you, and then you have to roll to get out. It's not like, oh, well, I have a chance to avoid it.
Hits you.
No, it just happens. Like, that right there is awful, because it's literally like, well, now I have to make this save to get out. I particularly don't like creatures that have the ability to grapple you without you making the save first, because
I was just about to bring that up. What do you guys generally think about that? Like the auto hit equal grapple, or so the hit equals auto grapple thing.
I don't like it because it makes it so that you end up it's an action economy thing, but it's also it makes the player feel like they had no agency in the matter. Like they didn't fail a roll, they just got dicked on.
Well,
you know,
I'm okay with it.
Their chance to avoid it.
Like if it's one big monster and then that's it, that's like the one thing it can grapple, but it can only grapple like one person or two people, that's fine. But like other than that, it's like that where like that whole encounter, it was literally every wave of monsters.
Yeah, it just becomes annoying, and it like if okay, I'll give you maybe if there's one monster that can do it, it's a lot better, but it's not like I don't know. It still feels like as a player, you know, I have to do something to get out of this now. And unless it makes me feel like there's a sense of urgency, I'm just gonna not like it. Also, like, you know, if you're a character with Misty Step, haha, fuck you. I'm just gonna Misty Step away.
Well, so like I remember I ran into this problem in a game that I was in where we got attacked by a vampire. And we were at like just about the level where you can deal with a vampire, but it's not going to be easy by any means. And the vampire was specifically trying to kidnap one of us. And they were charmed so that, you know, surprisingly enough, that character didn't have to deal with the problem. But it was specifically the character who was like sent to defend her just kept getting grabbed and then bitten. And there was just nothing he could do about it because he would just auto grapple again on the next turn because it's a vampire and it's got a stupidly high to hit. So it's just going to keep grabbing and then biting and licking you. Sorry, just scraping and licking. And there's yeah, I can see like I didn't even have to deal with it. And I was like, wow, this blows dicks. And I couldn't even really blame the GM on that point because it's like, that's literally what it says it does in the stat block. Like, there's no reason why a vampire wouldn't grab you and then rip your throat out. You know what I mean? Like, well, you can't even finagle it to be like, no, he doesn't do it this time. Why wouldn't he?
Well, usually, at least with the vampire, it has the thing where, like, it can make a fist attack against you, and if it hits, instead of dealing damage, it grapples you. So at least it's not like, I punch you and grapple you at the same goddamn time. And it's like, oh, no.
Yeah, that...
Like that could have been way worse.
I just... I don't know. I think when it's thematically appropriate, it can be okay. That's where the whole sense of urgency comes in. But like, if I'm constantly making saves because this thing has a high to hit, like it has an extra high to hit, and I have to make the save to get out of its grasp every single turn, and I don't get to make a turn because I have to take my action to try to break the grapple, that's annoying. You know, because I don't get to play the game. That's the DM saying, well, you don't get to play the game now, you know?
Right. Now what if it was like...
That's kind of why I don't like the charmed stats status, because it's like, well, I don't get to play. You know?
So here's my thing on the grapple thing. I have kind of a long-winded answer, so I was like, then you'll go. I'm a little split on it because... Well, there's a couple of things. One, yeah, it's annoying as a player to be like, all right, I'm getting grappled over and over again. However, the grapple condition doesn't stop you from really doing anything as a character, right? Like, grapple just means you can't move, but you can still do all your actions and shit. It's just, you know, if you're a ranged character, it's a little annoying because you're doing shit at disadvantage. You're doing your main thing at disadvantage. So like, if you're a ranger who gets grappled and you're always using your bow, it's annoying. You're like, all right, I guess I gotta whip out my sword, which I'm not as good with. Well, actually, you probably are still just as good with your sword as you are with your bow because of the way 5e works. But anyway, yeah, so like on one hand, it's like, yes, it's annoying you're repeatedly grappled, but grapple doesn't stop you from playing. It's not like you're stunned, right? And it's not that big of an impediment in terms of like, you're still mostly doing similar stuff because you're not moving that often in 5e. You know, like you're not moving around that much usually in 5e. But I do also understand the annoyance of like, if I don't want to be continually bitten over and over and over again by the vampire who's going to keep taking chunks out of me, I have to waste my turn on breaking out. So that's definitely annoying. So and having to make a grapple check over and over and over and over again is frustrating. And in that situation, I would be like, okay, what else can I do besides just breaking out of the grapple? Because clearly that's not going to work. And then I would honestly, in that position, I would start trying to like coordinate with the team, be like, can anybody do anything so he can't just keep grappling me over and over?
So you have to remember, Josh, hold on. Yeah. Most monsters have something that makes you, when you're grappled, either you take more damage from them or they get to do a special move.
They get an ability usually, yeah.
They get an ability.
Yeah, like the vampire biting shit.
Yeah. So like you don't, it's not that the grappled condition is bad.
Right, it's not the condition. No, I get what you're saying.
Matt's case literally restrained them, which is bad. That's not good.
You can still do stuff if you're restrained. It's harder to do everything. Because you're at disadvantage. But you can still do it.
Yeah, I should also mention that.
Well, hold on, wait.
But just for context.
Okay.
Because this fight was on a beach, every monster, besides the fact that it was grappling or restraining us, it was also then moving us towards the water to drown us. So
I mean,
that's okay.
Rough. That's kind of that's just okay. Mean. So here's the thing about but here's what this leads into my next point though on the situation is, I understand the frustration on the player end of things. On the DM side of things, though, it does make your life kind of easy to be like, okay, the monster hits and he grapples. I don't need to make two separate rolls, right? So in the subject of streamlining rolls, it's good in that regard because I'm just making the attack roll and then the thing happens. I don't need to make an additional roll for the grapple. And then as far as the like trying to drag people to the water and trying to drown you, that's kind of fun because it's different than just, you know, because a lot of the time enemies are just punching you in the face. So if an enemy in a game is trying to do something other than just punch you in the face, it does change up the flow of combat and make things a little bit different, right? Like the fact that Isaiah mentioned the vampire is trying to kidnap one of the players. That does change the objective from just being punch each other in the face until one of us goes down to, oh, the enemy's trying to do one thing and we're trying to stop them. So like that can be fun sometimes to change up what the objective of the encounter is. So
yes,
I understand the frustration, but on the other side of the screen, I also understand kind of how it can be fun and interesting.
It's the fun on paper versus the fun in practice, though. And I get that you have to try shit out to
I mean, you have to try shit out. It also depends on how often you're doing it.
That's where the role comes in. Like, I just, again, taking the player's agency out when it's like, I mean, a giant octopus is the size of a normal person most of the time, if not like a little bit larger. So like them being able to just grab you, like, okay, I get it's an octopus, but like they shouldn't be that much stronger than a normal human. At that point, it should be, if they're the same size, it shouldn't be an automatic grab. It should just be like, oh, whose strength score is higher or some shit like that.
I think the problem that you're having is the fact that you have to waste a turn on breaking out.
It's like, more than just that.
If you could,
wasting a turn on breaking out is, wasting a turn on breaking out is annoying. Yes.
Yeah, like imagine if you could make the check, but it didn't burn your action.
If it didn't burn the action, 90% of the problems with grappled would be either it would make grappling worse.
Right, that's the problem. Is it would make grappling almost useless. Yeah, it would do basically nothing at that point.
Also, make grappling like not horrible for players. Here's my consolation to that though. At the end of your turn, you can make the check without using your action.
That's a pretty good compromise,
because then you're still grappled for your turn, but you can take your action to do it.
You can do something,
or you can wait until the end of your turn, because then you can't move. You can't make an action to like, shoot your bow. Like it takes away. It's a mind game then, rather than like,
Yeah.
Oh well. I either have to sit here and take the monster's special move that they're going to use, like the Tarrasque's Devour or whatever. I don't remember exactly how that one works.
It's got Swallow as a
yeah.
The only downside I could see to that is then it's like, all right, you spend at the end of your turn, you make the save. Oh, I made the save. I'm not grappling anymore. All right, the vampire's turn. Well, looks who's going to get touched again.
Matt, that's the problem with that already, though.
It already works like that.
It already works like that. It's not like it changes anything. It just changes when the priority of you leaving their grasp is. And like I said, you can use the system where you can use your action to try to break the grapple would still be in place, but you also have the choice to try to do it at the end of your turn instead. So
right. But I do have one thing, like as dungeon masters, and as a nice tip, have monsters that, like, if you're gonna throw saves at your players, at least make it like different ones, like a beholder. Wait, are we allowed to say beholder?
Yes.
Oh, I'm saying it anyways.
Why would we not be allowed to say beholder?
Yeah, I'm confused.
I don't know. It's up later. So like beholders, like every eye ray has a specific, this one, like it's the petrification one, so make a con save. This is a death beam, make a dex save. So like each save for the eye ray is a different thing. So throw monsters at your players if you want to throw a shit ton of saving throws at them. Pick monsters that have different ones, or need different skills together.
I mean,
make it interesting.
Yes.
Combat, more
make the effects be different and have different reasoning behind them. And don't make it a passive aura for all of them. Like make it an attack, or they did a spell or something. Because it's the every turn thing that's really annoying with the saves.
Right, but I think there's a point we're kind of ignoring, or not ignoring, but I think there's a point that is
we haven't gotten to, probably.
So it's like, okay, it's annoying. The player's fighting the vampire keeps grabbing them and using their bite. It's like, or the player keeps getting restrained or whatever. There is a certain frustration of that, of course, and it's annoying to be like, all right, I have to waste my turn on this thing. But I think a good way to what's the way I want to put this? Mm-hmm. An important factor in this whole thing is that tabletop is a group not always. Most of the time, tabletop is a group exercise. There are solo games, but that's a whole other thing. So, you're playing, in D&D, you usually have a 4-man party. Somewhere in the range of 3 to 5 is like the standard amount. And it's one of those things where I think you have to take into account that part of the fun of the game is sort of that teamwork and that coordinating and that doing working with each other. And I think that's one of the reasons a lot of DMs get annoyed when all the players want to be the best player, and instead of all the players working together, because that's really what the point is, right? Like, it's okay if my class is underpowered because I'm helping someone else be cool, kind of thing. And I think this is part of that, where I'm making a roll over and over again and it keeps sort of shutting me out. So, hey team, is there something you guys can do to shift the situation? Can we coordinate? And your character's maybe not getting to do something cool, but you as a player can still interact with the situation by coordinating with your fellow players, and trying to figure something out. Yeah, I think that's an important factor in this whole thing.
It's an important factor, yes, but the problem with that, however, is that this is assuming this is already happening and that everybody is making these rolls. The grappling thing is just
if it's happening to everyone, then it's kind of
the grappling thing is just one small example because there are many.
And so something I did want to say on the matter is, yes, I agree that you should be using teamwork to try to circumvent the problems that you're facing. Yes. Unfortunately, if we're talking about 5e specifically, it gives you very little in the way of ways to overcome it using teamwork baked into it, right? So if we're going to use the grapple example, because we've been sort of rolling on that one for a while. If a vampire or a kraken or something kraken's not a good example because you can destroy the tentacles, so there is some teamwork to be used there. But if
Stick
a creature
with the vampire
grapples you, if a vampire grapples you, it doesn't say that you can attempt to like rip someone out of the vampire's grip.
So I don't think that's true, actually. I think most creatures that grapple, it does say someone can try and get you out.
I mean, I'm looking at the vampire stat block right now.
So
it doesn't.
Oh, no, sorry. Correction. It's not in the stat block, but if I remember correctly, in the rules of grappling, it specifically says someone can help you to get out.
Hold on. The condition also ends if an effect removes the grappled creature from the reach of the grappler or grappling effect, such as when a creature is hurled away by Thunder Wave spell. So, yes, there are ways to do this. So, like if you teleport someone or you physically push the creature away in some way, but like there's no specific ruling saying that a person can pull you out. You have to, as the DM, make that decision.
Maybe
DC.
it's only some monsters that say that.
Again, like the Kraken, it says you can destroy the tentacle and that person's no longer grappled.
No, I swear there's stuff I've read where it specifically says like you or an ally can try and make like a DC whatever athletics check to like get you out of the grapple.
Yeah, I know what you're referring to.
It might only be certain creatures.
Yeah, it's only certain creatures though. It's not every creature that exists.
But I mean, it is worth pointing out, is any GM really going to say no to that?
No, but again,
kind of a dick if you do say no.
I mean, it depends, because if the person is so high in the air, like,
it depends on the monster.
So far away, like,
depends on the situation. Is the important.
I was gonna say though, but that's the thing that I keep advocating for is like, no, a GM won't say no, but if you codify it, it makes it just that much more clear.
I could have sworn. I swear there was something codified in the game for that. But
if some monsters allow it, then that's it's partial codification of the problem. But like, I feel like situations where you cannot pull someone out should be more rare than when you can, right? If a Tarrasque eats and swallows you, there's not really much someone can do.
Yeah.
But if, Mrad von Maromich, the vampire, grabs a hold of Scrimbo Bimbo the Bard, there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to rip that person out of Mrad's arms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then put yourself in between them, like using a fighter's superiority dice, whatever that tactic is, Giroux one. Yeah. I mean, there are ways around it, yes, and that should be thought about, but like saving throws as a whole can affect the whole party. And like, I'm not saying, the dragon's fire breath, we're gonna have it, like you have to roll your save throw, roll your dex, please. Hi, thank you for everybody. And then like that one doesn't come up too often because of recharge. But like when it's an aura or you're using the effect every turn, like let's say the Scarecrow's stare, I forget the exact save on that, but like if you're using the Scarecrow stare and then it stuns the player every single turn because they keep failing to roll, that sucks.
Yeah.
Can I just real quick?
Are you
unrelated, but I gotta.
You put me on blast. Go ahead.
No, I'm not putting you on blast at all. Unless you have a white dragon somewhere, I'm not putting you on blast.
Okay. Well, I thought you were going to put me on blast for something that happened recently.
No, like I said, I got no problems with that. We talked about that the other day. Can we please talk about how I'm pretty sure only the white dragon has a saving throw on its breath weapon that's not Dex? Why?
I think some of the gem dragons now they changed it up a bit.
They might be, the gem dragons might be wisdom. That makes sense. But
I mean, I understand your frustration with that. My counter argument being, what else would it be if it's a situation where the big monster is breathing a thing at you, because the idea of a dex save is you're jumping out of the way? How else would you do it? I
mean, so the thing about that is, when you have a cone, and if you're like in the middle of the cone, your character doesn't physically move with the dex save.
This is true. Your character doesn't physically move, but the fictional idea is that you're hitting the dirt, you're rolling, you're rolling to the side. You're sort of like, you're moving.
At that point, it should be something like you manage to get out of the flame after a certain point, or like it only hits you a little bit because you did X, because if able to, honestly. And I understand that ruling would be very difficult for a lot of DMs to actually do, but yeah, because you're gonna have to move all these people outside of their turn. Can they take the movement? Blah 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 blah. So like, I understand why it's Dex, but also it could just very well be Constitution, because like.
But then if you made them all Constitution, Isaiah would be like, why are they all Constitution? So like that doesn't.
Yeah, well, so like let's
Isaiah wants them to be different. Is his point?
Yeah, like Adult Moonstone Dragon, Dream Breath. The dragon exhales a mist in a 90-foot cone. Each creature in that area must succeed a Constitution saving throw or fall unconscious for 10 minutes. Yada yada yada. Okay, so first of all, this should just be called Sleep Breath or Sleeping Gas or something like that. Like Dream Breath doesn't. The naming does not match the fiction here. But also, I can see this being a wisdom save, because it's like
it could be. It depends on how the quote unquote magic is, because if the fiction of the magic is that it's really just a sleeping gas, then it would be Constitution. If it's a magical mist that makes you fall asleep,
mist
then wisdom,
versus like neurotoxins are not the same thing.
Yeah. Well, okay, so foot and mouth.
So it depends on the fiction.
Green dragons do have a con save as well. Okay, I'm a little less mad now.
Yeah, I mean, you are correct in saying that most of them are Dex.
Ooh, Emerald dragons have an int save. Let's go.
I mean,
dude.
An int
more
save?
int
What's
saves
that?
in the game would be nice.
What's an int save?
Deep dragons
how does one save with their int?
So maybe this problem is less of a problem than I thought it was. Okay.
I mean, it makes sense that the newer dragons they've added to that, so But
singularity breath. Hold on, that sounds really cool.
Do they shoot a black hole at you? Excuse me.
The black hole. And it's a strength save.
That's a weird one.
I guess the idea is that it's pulling you in.
Yeah, I can see why. The problem with the saving throws for a lot of dragons, however, is the fiction behind them. Like, yes, the black dragon should probably be Constitution because it's poison. It's not like
it's acid.
I mean, it does acid damage. It's the
no, wait, green dragon? No, green dragon's poison. What are you talking about?
I thought you said
dragon.
He said black.
Black dragon. Yeah, my bad.
I mean, they're spewing a poison at you and acid. So like,
it's a poisonous gas that burns you like acid.
Oh, what the fuck? I thought they just throw up on you. What?
No.
It's like a gas.
I've been using the black dragons all wrong.
It just says exhales acid. So presumably it's like a pressurized gas.
Yeah, I always assumed it was a gas, but I do kind of like the idea that black dragons just fucking vomit on people.
I thought acid was liquid because I always imagined the D&D like the pools of acid that like adventurers fall into.
I mean, acid is technically just a part of the pH scale for a liquid, so like you're not wrong.
You're not wrong necessarily, yeah.
Okay, so it is a liquid. All right, my fancy.
Yeah, they're just breathing mustard gas at you.
Yeah, I always imagined it like mustard gas. We have gone into a completely different zone, by the way.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, I know. Well, I mean, yes and no, because this is part of rolling.
I mean, true.
It's just, I feel like that should be a Constitution save rather than a Dexterity save, because like, how long you can hold your breath. Do you hold it until the gas disappears, et cetera, et cetera? Unless you do the actual acid, then yes, it should be a Dexterity saving throw.
Can you imagine if green dragons forced a like holding breath mechanic? Yeesh, that would be rough.
Yeah, well, that would be more rolling, would not. Or
no, if you take a hit, because like the way it works with like drowning is like you can just do it until
you could just do it. I kind of like that idea actually. That sounds kind of fun. In like a different kind of mechanic sort of way,
until you have to keep track of it. How many turns you've been holding your breath?
I mean, yeah, but that's one of those things where I'd be like, hey, listen, players, like we need to share this responsibility. You need to help me keep track.
But my point is that like that throwing more things to keep track of in the game it can make it more interesting, but it has to be talked about, because if you just do it and you're like, hey, how many turns have you been doing? Oh, I forgot to keep track. And then you're like, well,
yeah.
So here's a question. How would you? So because I actually did this in a very particular dungeon that involved specific dragons in a game that I played. back into Ether
Durngans
times.
and Dragons?
Yeah, it's when I kamikazed myself and my entire party to kill a golem. That old chestnut.
The classic story.
Yep.
Good times.
Good times.
At one point, right, dear listeners, I know they did this in Goblin Slayer. I didn't get this from Goblin Slayer.
Nice.
If you line cloth with charcoal and you layer it up tight enough, you can create like a very jury-rigged gas mask of sorts, because that's all that's the only thing that are in filters. It's just layers of cotton and charcoal. How would you go about? Would you reward someone for trying to be creative and like yes, it would go against the mechanics you had in your head, but if someone kind of came up with an idea like that, how would you generally think about that?
Okay, so I have a few things I want to say. Absolutely, because
I mean, advantage
as a person,
at the very least.
Something. As a person who has been gassed, military, you have to get tear gassed.
I'm not military, but I've heard the stories from my father.
Any time you get tear gas, it's fucking awful. Like it is awful. I literally you cannot breathe because your body doesn't think there's oxygen. You hold your breath, that's fine, but you can't see now. Your skin is literally burning. Like, getting gas is not fun. So like, if there's poison gas around, because I mean that's essentially what getting tear gassed is. It's just poison in the air. You're not gonna have a good time.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, what's wrong?
I'm looking at the dragons list. In my brain mixed the words green with indigo, so I just read that as fairy dragon gringo.
Yeah. Nice. I want
the fairy dragon to have its top button buttoned up. It just hits you with an orale.
God bless.
I'm sorry, please keep going. It's just good enough.
So like,
I love
anyways,
dragons.
so yeah, like you can hold your breath in this shit, but like, it's gonna suck. You're gonna have a bad time. That's why I think Constitution
even
saving,
though you like jury rigged a gas mask, it's still shitty.
It's still shitty. Like the biggest thing is that like you can't see because your eyes are stinging and they water up and your body's like, you shouldn't close your fucking eyes, moron. So, like for instance, I remember when I got out of the tear gas chamber, I literally could not recognize what was in front of me. Like I could see, but I couldn't recognize it. So like it's not a great experience. So like if you're going to get poison gas for an attack, it should not be a great experience for your players. Jury rigging it should definitely give them something, though. You should reward them for that, because if they can bury you, they can do a whole lot more.
Mm-hmm.
Part of the problem with
also it's one of those things where if you encourage that behavior on a simple level, then they will likely do it later down the line when things start to get more complicated, which is good because then you as a GM you can throw more stuff around because you can rely on them to come up with better ideas to deal with it and stuff. So it's kind of a benefit for everyone.
Okay.
Yeah, always reward player creativity.
Because
the best.
I was thinking about how I would. Yeah, I was thinking about how I would handle it. Honestly, if they did that, I would say as long as they're moving at half speed or less, to sort of indicate that they're taking shallower breaths and they're trying to keep the shit out of their system as much as possible, I probably wouldn't even make them roll for it. But the second something like active goes on, like let's say like a spike trap starts deploying behind them and they have to start running away from it, that's when I would start forcing rolls, right? Because you're going to have to start breathing. You're gonna have to start circulating that poison through your body to get what you need.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely don't. See, now this is a good on topic thing, right? The amount of rolls you would be having them make in this situation. You definitely don't want to be like, all right, roll for me every 6 seconds. Like that's fucking no.
It ends up being annoying.
Yeah,
yes,
like you definitely would have to come up for some sort of. You definitely want to have some sort of situation where it's like only roll when it's pertinent and relevant, and when they're sort of doing things in between, as long as they're mostly on top of their shit, like, don't be up their ass about it. Because being up players' ass about rolling is, first of all, it's annoying for you because you have to remember it, and it's annoying for them because rolling the same thing over and over and over and over and over, it's just irritating.
So another way that you could handle that, though, is so you could have them do an initial roll to see how their body is handling the poison. And then when they do something active, have them roll again. because
yeah,
they're changing their state. So like
changing the state. I mean, it
reduces the amount of roll.
It's kind of.
Hold. You're both talking at the same time. Hold on.
I know.
It was Sam talking. I didn't quite hear him.
Yeah, I was talking. I mean, this happens all the time. It's fine.
It's one of those things. It's honestly kind of like everyone. We should probably make a drinking game out of this at this point. Everyone take a shot. Josh is going to mention Powered by the Apocalypse. It's kind of the logic for Powered by the Apocalypse. You only roll when the roll is relevant and when the dice hitting the table is actually something that matters. So you don't want to just roll if it's not going to change the scenario in any way, right? So if I'm playing Dungeon World and I'm dealing with a gas and like, oh, there's gas in the area or whatever, I'm not having my players roll Defy Danger every 5 minutes because that's not the point, right? There's nothing changing whether they fail or pass on like a little small 5-minute increment. I might have them roll Defy Danger once, and then like Sam said, once the situation changes, it's like, okay, now we roll again because things have shifted up enough to warrant another roll. And I don't know if D&D says to do that explicitly, but I do think you should do it in D&D, and most games do not ask for rolls if the scenario is the same and the outcome is irrelevant. Do not ask for rolls. Right?
I don't think that that's even mentioned in a lot of games.
I don't think it is.
I like
it should be.
I think it should be, because honestly, the scenario changing, because for instance, like if you're doing a chase scene and you're like, hey, roll athletics for me, you know, the situation isn't changing that often unless you roll poorly and you get attacked or you get caught or whatever. Then you should change.
If you're just running down a straight corridor, it's like I shouldn't have to be making an athletics check every single step of the way unless they catch up to me, or I say I'm going to try to book it harder. Yeah.
But like in that instance, you should probably only be allowed to do that once, because, you know, can you really book it harder than you booking it harder?
Right, you can only sprint so hard.
Harder than you booking it harder.
Yeah,
that's going into the chapters. Okay.
Yeah, it's like you can only sprint so hard, right? Like there's a physical
and like
limitation.
once you start sprinting, like, you know, you're already gassing yourself, and like unless you're cross country runner that's also a sprinter, God fucking bless you if you are.
Animal.
Good fucking luck. Like, you know, that shit's hard. So like, yeah, it all, like, rolls like that should be, I roll once to see how my beginning state is, and then if I try to change my state or if something else interacts with it, then I roll again. Yeah. I actually have another thing to talk about. Yes. So I have asked players in the past, and this is mostly my Monday game because they're all relatively new and they're kind of like, well, we don't want to meta game too hard.
Oh, that's adorable that they're worried about that.
So here's my thing. So I'll ask, they'll be like, oh, do we find any shelter nearby that we can like avoid the rainstorm in? And I'm like, okay, make me investigation or perception roll. I don't, whatever, which one do you want to do? I don't care. And they're like, okay, but can we all do it? I'm like, well, yeah, you're all searching.
Right.
And they're like, well, we just asked because we don't want to metagame. I'm like, no, it's fine. Because you are all searching.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense fictionally. All of you are doing it.
Yeah, it's not like you're sitting at a lockpick and going, can we all roll?
Right, no. In that case, no, you can't all roll. There's only one lockpick.
Yeah. So, but that's another instance of when when players ask for the ability to help with the roll or do the roll themselves, like that's also another thing that should be talked about more, because a lot of the time it's like, we don't, we're not going to allow all the players to do this. Like for the investigation thing, like unless the player's character is engaged in something like combat, they should be allowed to investigate a room with their friends or
now,
help.
Here's my question with that scenario, because this one I think comes up quite a fair bit.
Yeah,
where when you're dealing with an investigating, if you're investigating, or everybody's climbing up a wall, or like what's another good, I don't know, I can't think of another good example, but like everyone's doing a thing physically. Yeah. Most people are on the same page. If all of you are doing it all physically, everybody's rolling. right?
Yeah.
That's generally like, sure, fine. The thing where people start to get a little iffy about that specific scenario you just mentioned, Sam, is, and the reason your players are probably asking is because of this, is the idea of, okay, all of us just got a piece of information, and then every player goes, can I make a history check? Well, can I make a history check? Well, can I? Because the first player failed, so the second player is like, well, can I try? And then the third player is like, well, can I try? And some people get a little iffy about that because the players obviously see each other rolling dice, but the characters do not. Like, Grog the Barbarian does not look at Scanlan the Bard and know that he's thinking about something unless he can read his mind. So do you let them all make the history check in a row?
So honestly,
yeah.
I will leave that
My
up to
answer
player
is yes,
agency.
by the way. I let him do it.
I would let them do that. It all comes down to player agency, because at that point it's like, well, would my character do that? If my character's a moron, why would he have ever done this? And then I'll ask, why do you know this? Because
yeah,
well,
it's not even I don't even think it's the why that bothers people necessarily. I think it's the idea that, oh, you're all just rolling because you guys just want to succeed, and it doesn't actually make sense.
It's the metagaming. It's the metagaming part.
Yeah.
But but honestly, with that particular thing, it makes sense for everybody to be like, have I heard of that before? Like, because
I think it does too, but some
history
people
check
don't.
In that specific example, because I'm sure there are other examples I don't understand this language, so why would I even know what's written here without the person that's trying to do the check explaining it to me? Again, it comes down to player agency. I'm not generally gonna say no, but I'll ask, why would you know something about this?
Although
or I'll ask, who wants to make a history check for this?
Yeah. Also, funny workaround on the language one, though. The person reading the language, if they turn to their friends and explain what they're reading, then I'll let everyone make the check, because you explained it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
like, but without that, they shouldn't be able to just make the roll because they don't know what they're looking at.
Yeah, I was gonna say, the way that I usually do it is that I will say that for the most part, if it's basic enough, I'll say, yeah, sure, everybody can roll. If it's a little bit more obscure, then I'll say anyone with proficiency or that would have a personal attachment to a certain subject then can roll. And very rarely will I just be like, only people who are like, well, actually that's not true. If it does matter to someone, like specifically be like, you can roll, no one else can.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I rarely do that, but definitely I like the proficiency one a lot, where it's like, this is so obscure that even though, like, it's a situation where the knowledge is so odd and obscure that it's like, yeah, you could potentially get a nat 20, which would clear the DC I'm thinking of, but you don't give a shit about this particular topic. So even you getting a nat 20, it's like really weird that you would know this thing, right? Like, if it's like,
well, that's where the why would you know this?
Meanwhile, the character who's proficient in history is an architect or an archaeologist. So it's like they would be interested in this, so I do like using the proficiency one. That's a handy like barrier to put up.
Yeah, I used to have a player that he specifically thought for the longest time that you couldn't make an ability check unless you were proficient in the skill. So when I would ask people for like, I would ask the group, I'm like, all right, everybody make a history check or make an arcana check or whatever. He'd look around and he'd be like, why is everybody rolling? Like, does anyone proficient with arcana? And I was like, no, dude, it's fine. It doesn't matter. He's like, no, that's not the rules. And I'm like, what? And I'd have to look. And it was one of these things, I guess, in older editions that you couldn't roll a skill check unless you were proficient in it. I don't know which edition, but this is something that, was mentioned to me.
Third edition, if you didn't have any points in this skill, you were absolute garbo. Like, just garboter.
Straight rubbish.
Because the skill checks would end up being so high because you'd have to put so many skill points in it. So it's possible that he was thinking about that. I don't know about first edition, second edition. I don't even remember fourth edition checks all that well, honestly. I don't think we even did them that much. But like,
yeah, I don't remember.
I can see why someone would think that, but why would you then calculate the roll? Like the bonus to the roll.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, that's fair enough. God damn it, I can't stop yawning. This is so annoying.
Stop, forehead.
I wish.
Right?
So I had a question that sort of that rubber bands into out of the previous one, and that is, do you use 5e refers to them as automatic successes? I know them from a different phrase, but I can't remember what that phrase is. And if you do use them, how often do you use them, and what are their limitations? And I will explain. If a player's passive would equal or surpass the DC that you think that it should be, how often does that come into play for you? Do you use it at all? What are the limitations of it?
So I use something similar.
Well, I feel like we should explain before we get into it. I think it's worth pointing out how this is actually calculated, because this is definitely one of those rules. This is one of those funny rules that everyone uses and doesn't realize they're using, because everyone uses passive perception, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of people do not realize that the way passive perception is calculated applies to all the stats in the game.
Right, that's why they have the whole taking 10 rule and all that other stuff.
So it's not taking 10. Taking 10 is a slightly different thing, and D&D does not use taking 10. So the basically the idea, or the way that it functions, so everyone's on the same page, every ability has a passive score, which is why on your character sheet you'll see you have a passive perception. And the calculation is real simple. It is literally just 10 plus whatever your normal modifier for that skill would be. So if I have a 5 in Arcana, my passive Arcana is 15. It's just 10 plus what I have in that skill, so it's 15. So your passive perception it's the same deal, and you can apply that to every skill. So the thing Isaiah is talking about is if you have a situation where the DC of something is 12, let's say it's an athletics check with a DC 12, and your barbarian has a passive athletics score of 18, so 10, so they have an 8 in athletics, then you just let them climb the wall, because the DC is so low that it's not really worth having them roll. That's the thing Isaiah is referring to. I do have an answer to this, but I'll let y'all.
So I do something similar where it depends on the situation. If I think that you're actively doing something and you're trying to do it fast, I'll make you roll for it. However, I will also generally say you'll succeed. So for instance, a lockpick, like if you're picking a lock and you don't meet the DC, but your abilities would make me believe that you're going to be able to pick this lock eventually, I'll just make it take longer. It won't take the 6 seconds that it normally would. It'll take like a minute, maybe 5, maybe 10.
Yeah.
Depending on the scenario. But if that's and I'm pretty sure the DMG talks about this one specifically, or another book that I've read.
I believe it's actually in the player's handbook.
I mean, it might be. The things that should DMG. Be in the DM. It is in the DMG? Okay. Yeah. Hey, where, if you're picking a lock and you're trying to do it without getting caught by the guards, and then the guards walk around the corner, you not making the check means the guards have spotted you, and now the situation has changed. So it is entirely, dependent on the scenario. When I make you guys make checks in our Friday game, it's usually because I'm like, all right, well, they're actively trying to do something. So this will happen. But if I think that something is obvious and your investigation or your perception will reveal it to you, I'll just say that you see it. Because, I mean, honestly, why wouldn't you see something like that? This is a really silly example.
Don't roll unless it's relevant. It's,
I mean, yeah,
if the outcome is if nobody cares about the outcome, don't bust the dice
care
out.
About the outcome. But it would be like if I made you guys roll to see the storm clouds above you when you were approaching the island. That would be silly, because you can see them. They're right there. It's not like you have a roof over you.
Well, and also, let's say you did have us make a check. Nothing interesting comes out of failing that check, right? If you had us make a check to notice the storm clouds, and then we failed the check, you would just go, okay, well, I guess there's just cricket noises, right? Nothing exciting happens from us not noticing some storm clouds. So it's not relevant and nobody cares about the outcome. Don't use the dice.
However, if you're still sailing and it's a massive storm and you guys barely notice it in time because the person in the crow's nest isn't doing their job, or people aren't paying attention,
where the outcome
then it's
matters.
Interesting. Yeah. So it's just ultimately depends on the situation. You know, making your players roll for a situation that they could easily resolve within a few hours or so. Like, yeah, if you want to make them do it faster, sure, let them roll. But like, if they're not asking, you say, oh, it'll take this much time. And then usually your players will respond, well, can we do it quicker? Usually.
Yeah. For me, well, Isaiah and Matt, I'll let you go first because I feel like I'm gonna go off on this because I've thought about this particular subject quite a lot. I'll let you two first.
Yeah, I mean, my answer is not that much different than other people's. It's pretty similar. If it doesn't matter, I don't make people roll for it. If it does matter, it depends on a few factors. So let's say they just have a really high base stat, right? Like if it's like, oh, a poison dart comes flying at your head, and I'm like, okay, well, the DC would be 15, and they have let's say a 15, right? They have +5 to their dex, but they don't have proficiency in acrobatics. I'll still make them roll for it, right? Because it's like you have good skill overall, but this is not something that you're practicing. This is just something that you have a natural talent in. In that instance, I will probably make someone roll for it. But if they have something like expertise in their acrobatics, I'll just say that you fucking Neo from the Matrix, do the bullet time lean back dodge, right?
Yeah.
There are some instances where I will allow an automatic success even in a time of peril if someone should just be that good at it. And they are absolutely outstanding circumstances. You need to have a ridiculously high modifier for me to even think about allowing it, and even then it really depends on the situation.
Yeah. There's that thing again. It depends on the situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, okay, hold on. I just need to cut in real
Blow
quick.
your
What's the
load.
situation?
No, I cannot believe
couldn't
that you
stop
just
thinking
fucking
it.
referenced
I
that.
couldn't stop thinking it. I'm sorry.
Oh,
For the internet, I'm referencing a really dumb video, and I just couldn't let it go. But yes, agreed. The situation of the circumstances always you can't be 100% hard and fast on this, because circumstances is always going to make little adjustments. Mm-hmm. So you can have general rules, but specific scenarios are always going to affect it.
Overall, yeah.
It depends
Matt?
on the situation.
Yeah. No, I mean, honestly, I don't really have much besides that. One thing I will say, though, please, DMs and players out there, look at the Dungeon Master Guide, page 244 to 255. Look at social encounters page. If it has a really good structure of social encounters and how NPCs will treat players. And this is going back to the point for a sec. If a player ends up talking with someone and having actually talking and has a good argument, please, for the love of God, don't be like, all right, do me a favor and roll a persuasion check. If their words are conveying enough to you, just be like, all right, cool. Or if you make them roll, just put the DC at 5. Don't tell them. Just be like, geez, you're gonna roll persuasion check, and they roll a 6. Doesn't matter, they pass.
I would say usually for me, if the DC would logically be below 10, I don't even make them roll. There's just no point.
Yeah, most of the time.
Yeah, most of the time.
I would say though, I kind of disagree with you there, Matt.
Yeah.
I think when you're dealing, I do know the section you're referring to in the DMG, and I do know that everyone likes to bring that up, there actually are mechanics for the. I know those mechanics exist. They're kind of whatever, because the situation those mechanics are describing is so ingrained with how people run social encounters anyway. People are already doing that and don't even realize they're doing it. So it's kind of if you want to read it just to think about it, it's fine. But when it comes to the idea of the persuasion check thing, even if you make a really good argument, if an NPC you're talking to is on the fence, then they're on the fence, if you make because for me, the really good argument is not giving you the success. The really good argument is giving you the opportunity to make the roll. Because if you make a shitty argument, I'm not even going to let you roll. It's just a no. You know what I mean? So I'm giving you the opportunity for the roll. And then if there's some outstanding circumstance on top of that, then you start getting into the realm of like maybe you have advantage or maybe you just automatically succeed. But if you're just making a compelling argument, if a character's on the fence, they're on the fence about a situation, you know, like you can't.
It depends on the NPC. It depends on the situation.
Yeah,
this is literally gonna be the title of the episode. It depends.
It depends.
Yeah, I mean, I would say.
But to roll, it depends.
The other important thing with the persuasion thing, though, this is important with the persuasion situation, is we've been saying situation too much.
The situation.
Yeah, but with the persuasion thing is like you as a player are not expected when you make an athletics check to then also lift your table to prove that you can like do athletics, right? So I'm not gonna say to the player, you didn't make a good enough argument, no persuasion check for you or nothing. Like if the player just describes, hey, I'm playing a bard who's got a really high persuasion, they would know how to say this better than me. Like I'll hit these general points in my argument. Can I just make a check to see if they, and then I will describe afterward if they succeed the check. Oh, you make a really compelling and eloquent argument, blah, 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 right? Like, so I don't want to have to tie your actual ability in real life to argue with people to the game situation, especially if you're playing a character with a 20 charisma and you have a 10 charisma IRL, right? Like, so...
Right, I could see that.
That's important.
I think it's more. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I think it again. It depends. I'm gonna stop saying that. I think it's more fun though to ask a player, be like, "Hey, all right, DM, can I persuade the bartender to lower the price of my drink?" All right, cool. What do you say to him? Because it engages the player more. I think into like the role play aspect. Even if they say, I don't know, like even if they spitball something, at least gets them thinking. And if they can't come up with anything, then yeah, you be not, and you're like, all right, yeah, sure. But I think
here's my counter argument, Matt. Though is awkward players who are not comfortable.
That's fine. Well, that's again. You get. Oh, sorry. Go for it, dude.
No. Well, I was gonna say. Well, so to me, right? More often than not, if a player does make a really, really compelling argument, like one that is almost completely foolproof. Yes, it depends on the NPC, but most people, if they're being told like, hey, look, this is how this is going to happen. You know, you provide them with evidence and be like, it's happened X amount of times with X amount of people and X amount of situations. If you do this same thing, it's probably going to happen to you. Yes, people can be like obstinate and they can be like, no, it's not. But when it counts for your life, like, right, if you're like, hey man, don't go down that valley. There's orcs over there. They are going to fuck your shit up if you go down there.
Here's my whiteboard flow chart of how it's going to happen.
Yeah. If you tell a guy, don't go into that valley, it's bad news. You know, that's where it's like, make a persuasion check, right? Like, he has no reason to believe you. You're just saying don't do a thing. And if you're like, hey, don't go over there, that I would say that's even less, right? Like, don't do that thing. Yeah. Fuck you. No, I'm going to do it anyway. Or if you're like, hey, don't go down there, there's orcs, then it's like, okay, make a persuasion check. And then if it's, hey, don't go down there, there's orcs, there's about 30 of them, they're all armed to the teeth, they've got some weird tactics that orcs don't usually use, they've got some siege engines, it is really bad down there. We just lost the caravan 2 days ago. That's where I would be like, the guy would be like, oh shit, thanks man. Like that's, yeah, no, hell no, I'm not going down there now.
That.
Yeah, it's that awkward thing where I can't shoot fireballs in real life, but I can make a good argument in real life. So it becomes that awkward thing that your player, that you as a player, this is one of the few things you can actually do well at the table, where normally you can't do the other things at the table. So it does become a weird balancing act of, do I ask for dice? Do I not ask for dice? Is the argument compelling enough? Yeah, it's tricky. Right. Yeah. It's very tricky because there's a lot of things your characters are generally doing. And then you also get into the realm of, if my character pulls a gun, you know, where you're playing Vampire the Masquerade, your character pulls a gun on a cop and starts like talking shit. You as a player can talk the shit, but you can't actually point a gun at your GM. I mean, well, you could, but you shouldn't.
Let's not get on to tabletop horror stories, please.
Yeah.
So like you have to account for my character's doing a thing I can't actually do right now, but also I'm informing what the character's saying, and I can actually talk right now. I don't know where I'm going with this, but it is definitely that particular subset of playing any tabletop is a tricky little subset.
I think it's player by player, honestly.
It's hard.
And
Right. Yep.
it ends up being that like it goes even further into it depends on the situation, because the player is such a pivotal piece of that.
Yeah.
Because a player, and I think you should always reward good role playing. So like if a player gives a huge speech, then you know what? Maybe I'll let you do the role with advantage.
Maybe advantage.
I'll
or
give you a
something,
bonus of some sort. Hell, you might not even have to make the roll, depending on how good it was and who you're talking to.
A situation where a player was wow. Sorry, train left the station for a second there on Logic Town. I've had a situation where a player has made such a good argument with a character who was completely obstinate, right? But they made such a good argument that it went from a situation of there's no way you can convince him to you can roll for it, I guess. He might be convinced. That was a strong argument. So, I have allowed that too.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, that's where you use the D&D social encounters, and it's like, oh, he was indifferent, but now he's friendly.
Yeah, I just think those charts are kind of goofy and dumb.
I know, but they're easy to use.
They feel too number crunchy for something you can't really apply like math to,
What?
So
there's only 3 DCs.
I think
I know, but
the one that
never mind.
gets me more than the persuasion is always the intimidation.
Yeah.
That one is such a nightmare to do as a player, but also as a GM.
Yeah.
Right? Because despite how I feel in person about the subject, I've had several characters who are totally fine with torture, right? Like one of the characters I played was an interrogator, but I didn't put a lot of my stats into intimidation or charisma, really. Like the character was kind of low charisma. It was actually the same character in the golem and the acid and shit like that. And he had okay charisma, but a +3 to your intimidation at 14th level, it doesn't mean a whole lot, And there was several times where I've blown a hole in someone's hand, a la Legend of Vox Machina, and the GM was roll intimidation, and then I failed, and they were they're not intimidated. I'm I just shot off 3 of their fingers. What
you think you're a tough guy blowing off my hand like that? God, what a bitch.
I think so. A situation like that, I think that's where you say, okay, so you failed the roll. It's not that they're not intimidated. It's just that they're obstinate. Right.
Or they're not going to give you the information because they're still holding on. But that's they're not afraid of you. I don't know.
It seems unreasonable to say they're not intimidated.
Someone's tied me up and hurt me.
Yeah.
Real bad. This is not something I could just magic away. Unless I use restoration.
You could say he's not intimidated, but he's now doubling down on his refusal to say the information you want or something because he's just angry or something.
Right, it's the failing forward thing, or it's you failed the roll, however,
exactly. No, that's exactly what it is, Matt.
It's
failing forward.
Now.
The context has changed. It is failing forward. Yes, correct. Wait a minute, Matt. How do you know about that? How do you know about failing forward? Where'd you hear that?
Because I watched a Matt Colville video.
Matt Colville's taking that from other games. God. Guess what games mention failing forward a lot? Take another shot.
I'm gonna do
Dungeons and Dragons,
Josh. Yeah, yes. You know what's okay, Josh? Stealing.
Yeah, no, 100%. I'm not shitting
on context of tabletop RPGs. Do not take this out of context.
Don't rob IRL. No, I know. I'm not shitting. I'm not shitting on Matt stealing the idea. I just think it's kind of funny that Matt, the person who only plays D&D, finally mentioned something that is outside of it. But anyway.
So remember, guys, episode 2, what did I say? Steal from everything. Steal from books. Yeah. Steal from... It's a good idea.
Yes, but
It'll help you advance your game state. Wow.
Yes.
Steal from other games. Yes.
I wanna mention, because I didn't say anything about like the passive checks situation.
Uh-huh.
So we've kind of been talking about passive checks this whole time, like sort of indirectly. The thing with passive checks / automatic successes for me is, Sam, I think you said this. The most important thing is if there is pressure on the situation.
Mm-hmm. Sense of urgency.
Yeah, if there is a sense of urgency and time and stuff like that, then I'm generally in the camp of you have to make a check because you're trying to do it fast and under pressure. But if there's no sense of urgency, then generally that's when I start looking at passive checks and saying like, okay, is this person so skilled at this thing that they will eventually just be able to do this? You know, your barbarian with 8 in athletics has an 18 passive athletics score. If there's nothing else affecting him, he will eventually just get up the damn mountain because he's a beast, right? And also, side note, players like being able to do, it's kind of funny because people are like, oh, rolling dice is fun. Rolling dice is fun, but it is also kind of fun to say to the GM, hey, GM, I have a 20 intelligence. I'm so biggest brainest. Can I just solve this? And the GM go, you know what? You right. You are that fucking big brain. You just get this. And that's like fun, which is funny because it seems like it wouldn't be fun because you're not rolling any dice or doing anything, but being able to just like point at your character sheet and be like, give now is like actually really fun sometimes. So being able to be like, yeah, my barbarian is such a fucking muscular badass. He just climbs this sheer cliff in like 30 minutes. That actually can be a good time.
Well, yeah, because it's rewarding the build that you've given yourself.
Right, it's rewarding your build. It's rewarding,
and
it's reinforcing the fictional idea you have about your character, right? Because if you built a barbarian, you probably want them to be big and strong. So saying, oh yeah, you get to just climb the wall is reinforcing that yes, they are indeed a big, strong badass. So it's fun. So
what if I made a Dex barbarian?
You're wrong if you made a Dex barbarian. Anyway, moving on.
No, I love Dex barbarians. They're fucking amazing.
You're not wrong, but I don't know. I just in my head, I'm sure that I've never thought that much about it. I'm sure I could think of a way to make a Dex barbarian that would be really fun to me. I've just not thought that deeply about it.
I don't know. I just think of big hammer, big axe, big sword.
Exactly.
Who is the female main character from Princess Mononoke?
Fuck, what's her name? Is it Mononoke? Maybe, no.
It's not.
Maybe.
It's not. I know who you're talking about. Yeah, she's basically a Dex barbarian.
Yeah, I would say like she's 100% Dex barbarian.
Yeah, she's a Dex totem barbarian.
Yeah.
With the wolf spirit totem.
Her name is San.
There you go. So, all right, here's my question, Josh. How would things like proficiency and expertise play into that?
Oh, yeah, no, 100%. Expertise? If you're a rogue with expertise, bro, yeah, of course, if let's say you have a passive 20 stealth because of your expertise, yes, you can sneak through the noble's manor. I'm not going to bother making you make checks. You're such a giga chad at sneaking. What's the point? You know what I mean? So yeah, no, 100%. Again, as long as there's not something bearing down your throat, I think that's the most important part, you know?
Well, so that was kind of my question. Is there a situation where you could have a modifier so high that even if something is looming over your head, that you could still do it passively? Like if you've got a 26 investigation, like a passive 26 investigation.
I don't even have you roll because the DC would have to be like 30.
So yeah, I get what you're getting at. So here's I think how I would generally handle that is, so you have a passive 26 investigation. So obviously you're fucking the ultimate Sherlock Holmes. I think if it's a situation that's urgent, like let's build a situation. You're in a room, you need to find a key to get out of the room, and there's a group of mind flayers like coming down the hall that are about to bust in and like murder the shit out of you. So I would still have you make a check, because that urgency is there. You're doing it under pressure. You're not able to take a minute and think. But because your stat is so high, even if you failed the check, I would probably still give you something that you wouldn't get normally, you know? So like, yeah, you fail the investigation check, you don't find the key, but you do realize that from the layout of the room and where some of the objects are that, oh, you could make like a trap, or not a trap, you could make like a barricade, and you could do this and that in the room, and then that'll give you more time. Like, I'll give you something extra even though you failed, I think is generally how I'll handle that. Because even the most skilled people in the world, right? Like if you think of like UFC fighters, they're the most skilled fighters in like our modern era. Even they sometimes, because of the pressure of a fight, fuck up. Even though they know they're like how to do a triangle hold, they fuck it up because of the pressure of the fight, right? The opponent is particularly threatening, or it's a guy who has a better reach than them, or his wrestling game is really strong, so they fuck it up. So it's like, no matter how good you are, there's still a chance you fuck up. The difference being is if the UFC fighter fucks up their triangle choke, they know how to fix the scenario after they fucked up. Whereas if someone who's only like just getting into jiu-jitsu fucks up the triangle hold, they don't know what to do next, right? They're like, I my one trick I didn't do correctly, what do I do now? So I think that's the difference for me, for the most part. And I think, yeah, I think that's something that you could reasonably do most of the time. You know, I think it's rare that there's a situation where you couldn't do that. So, yeah, I think that's generally how I handle it. Yeah, it is a thing. I mean, like we said, the whole passive checks and everything, like it's relevant. It's a mechanic, and it's not even an optional mechanic, by the way. It's a mechanic that's built into. It's not like a variant rule or anything. It's built into the game. So you should totally acknowledge it. Yeah, I think that's all I was. I think. Yeah. So that was
Josh,
kind of my whole point there.
What if I just wanted to open a door?
You're gonna have to roll strength for that. And dexterity,
you know what?
to see if you can grab the
you know
knob.
what? That's a great point, Matt. That's a great example. Anyone who's watched Critical Role, all right, Matt Mercer, you're getting put on blast right now. Sorry, bro. Love you, but you're getting put on blast for this one.
Oh no, we're getting canceled by the
I don't
critters.
give a shit. Critical Role's getting put on blast. No, sorry, Matt Mercer's getting put on blast for this, not Critical Role. Any viewer, listeners, anyone who's watched Critical Role, if you know there's a scene, maybe 30 some odd episodes in. It's the Briarwood arc, if you know what that means.
They do it in the animation, too.
They do it in the animation, too, because it was a funny moment. Matt Mercer has his players make a check to try and open a door. I believe the exact situation was the door was barred by something, and they were trying to, like, get it out of the way to get into, like, a church building. There was no urgency. There was no monsters. Nothing was going on. It was just Vax and Scanlan. It was just two characters. They were present. I think Percy was there too. It was just the 2 or 3 characters. They were present. Nothing was happening. They were trying to get into this building. I think they were trying to find something. Like, it wasn't a situation where they were like sneaking. The weather was normal. There was no monsters, nothing. He had them make, I think it was like 5 or 6 different checks because they kept failing. Don't do that. Don't do that shit. It was fine at the time because the players were laughing. Matt Mercer made it into like a goof. It was fine. It came up as a joke later. So like nobody was mad, but don't do that. No. Do not have them make a check to open a door. I understand what he was doing. He's like, "Oh, well, the door's barred." It's like, "Yeah, but it's not worth having them make like 3 or 4 sleight of hand checks or whatever the hell." I didn't even remember exactly what he did, but it was like way too many rolls of the dice. Don't do that shit. Don't have your players roll to take a piss.
I agree.
I mean,
I do think.
Yeah.
So I do to play devil's advocate here, because I do, for the most part, I do agree with you on this end. There were other things that the players were trying in that point, right? Like Percy tried to climb through the window. I feel like it's one of those things where maybe, and not that I know, but maybe the point was that maybe Matt wasn't thinking that they would try to go through a door barred from the other side, a door literally made to be, you can't break through it.
Maybe, but if that's the scenario, then just pause the game and say, guys, don't stop fucking around with this. This is not. I wasn't intending you for the mess around with this. Just there's another way. Just ignore this. You know what I mean?
And
like just
ruin
say,
my immersion.
In that end, yeah, I was gonna say to that end, it is an entertainment show. Like I don't think.
Yeah, I mean it is, but it's also a game for your players. You gotta kind of split the difference at a certain point.
Yeah, I suppose it's one of those things where maybe talk about it over break after the fact, but
you could do that. Yeah.
At this point, though, I think because he's done the door thing even in campaign 3, I think this is just this is a goof and hill that he is going to die on. And,
now it's a joke.
I respect the chutzpah.
Yeah. I mean, now that he's made it a joke, it's fine. But that particular scene, when it wasn't even a joke yet, I was just like, "What the hell are we doing?" I got actively annoyed. Like I remember getting actively mad about that.
What?
Yeah, no, I was actively mad because I was like, "Why are we putzing around with this stupid shit?" Like, it became funny.
Yeah,
I let it go, but in the moment, while I was listening to it, I was like, I was genuinely annoyed. I think I was annoyed because I've seen and/or been in those spots, and they're so aggravating sometimes as a player that you're like, I don't even know what to like. You know what I mean?
I do, because I've also been in those spots, but I think the mood of it is what stopped it from being annoying, right? Obviously it was a goof on all ends. So
it is, yeah. You're not wrong. It's just one of those things where you get to this mental point while you're playing that you like, as a player, sometimes you just want to like flip the table and be like, I don't know, I'm done talking. I'm gonna let you guys fuck around. You know, like you just don't want to engage at a certain point because you get so frustrated. And I'm not saying that's what's happening, but I know it can get to that point sometimes.
From the player side or the DM side?
Player side.
Oh, yeah.
I agree. Although I think to that end, I advocate for this a lot. It just try other shit, right? Like if you're smashing your head against a door in this case,
change
but a wall,
change the situation.
Try the new strategy. Just do shit.
Yeah.
Because eventually something is going to have an effect.
Yeah.
Like Sam and Matt and Josh will all know. Like if my plan A fails, I've got about 12 other plans that I'm willing to try until something sticks. Mm-hmm. And I'll just keep coming up with more because, it's something is going to work, right? Like if I can't brute force my way through, I'm going to figure some shit out.
Right. Yeah, I had kind of a situation, not exactly, but like in spoilers kind of for Icewind Dale or Rime of the Frostmaiden. There's a part where you're doing a trial, and the trial is basically about like endurance. And we fought, it was 2 frost giant skeletons. And every time we take them down, they'd come back up. Not fully HP, but they'd come back at 0. It wasn't even like the zombie mechanic where the zombie rolls a con save and all that. No, they would just come back up at the beginning of their turn, like back at 1 HP and, do whatever. So we're like, okay, beat them down? Nothing. All right. Fire damage? Nothing. All right. Throwing a boulder on top of them so their bones, you can't heal back? Nothing. Take the different pieces of the bones to the far sides of the room so they can't, heal together? Nope. They're just magnetized back together. And it's like, fuck, what are we doing? Until the cleric was like, I throw a radiant damage spell. And it's like, because they're zombies, right? Surely that's got to work. And it finally did. For the love of God. But, it's like one of those situations where it's like just going through, just trying to think it out and trying to be like, all right, what the hell haven't we done yet?
Yeah, that's valid. I mean, I can understand the frustration there, but I can also there is at least some fun in that particular example.
Yeah, we weren't mad. We were mostly just like, what? The meme of like, why won't you stay down, old man?
Why won't you die?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crap. I had a thing. Oh. So it's also worth pointing out to sort of jump off what Isaiah and Matt just said. There are also a lot of GMs who get mad with the quote unquote dogpiling problem, where it's like, okay, can I kick open the door? All right, make a check. Oh, it fails. Can I try again? Okay, fine. Can I try again? Okay. Can I try again? No, you can't try again, And I think something that's worth pointing out is it's okay to say to your players, hey, go ahead, make the check. Okay, you failed. Can I try again? No, you have to do something different to make another roll, right? You can't just keep The door is maybe a bad example because hypothetically you could just keep repeatedly kicking a door, but that's where you as a DM have to then think about, all right, what can I do to change this scenario up so that they can't just keep kicking the door?
Yeah, because you don't want, all right, fighter, kick down the door, fails the check. Okay. Barbarian, come down, kick the door, fails the check. Okay. Shit. War cleric?
So what you say to your players is, hey, you have to do something actively different. You can't just keep making the same check over and over and over. Or even if it's the same check, as long as you're doing something different in the fiction, that's fine, you know? Like, can I try and like rip the window off its hinges? Okay, that's another athletics check, but it's a different thing fictionally, so that's fine.
I was gonna say, I think it's worth stating that, like, I think you can absolutely force a change in the scenario by saying, like, you can't do it because, like, if we're gonna do the kicking the door down, right? If they fail miserably, or you know what? Not even. Let's say if they fail by like a point or two, and that they do it again and they fail again. I think it's perfectly valid for you to, like, you would know based on the fact that you've kicked this door twice with as hard as you can, and you could, you know, Captain America rip a log in half with your bare hands.
It's just
you get the feeling that this door might just be reinforced from the other side.
Yeah.
So you can't make any more, like, if you can make a million checks in the world, you're probably not gonna be able to kick the damn thing down.
Gotta do something different. Yeah.
I've done that myself several times, and just being like, you get the feeling that, like, you are not gonna be able to brute force this open, or you're not gonna be able to use a conventional lockpick to open this. Like, there was one where my players were, they were trying to get into a door that was locked. And again, I'm going to keep bringing this up because I have to, just in case people hop in at a later episode. My game takes place in the post-apocalypse. So they were trying to get into an armory at a police station, and they couldn't. And they're like, can we pick the lock? And I was like, well, you know, in my head, I was like, you know, no, because it's locked by a key lock. But I was like, what the hell, right? They can try to do like the Resident Evil Afterlife and like shove a needle in the key lock and just crank it to break it open. I was like, sure, I'll at least give him the opportunity.
Do the Han Solo shoot the lock.
Yeah, and I was like, they're gonna need a natural 20, but you know, and they didn't get it, obviously, because it's just a stupidly high roll. And I was like, you get the feeling that you're going to need a key card of some kind. And they were like, you know, that stopped them from being like, can I? Oh, that's not true. That didn't stop them because they were like, can I try to lockpick it? I was like, no. You need a key card.
Yeah.
Cut that out.
Exactly. You just got to be like, no, we're not making unnecessary rolls for no reason.
What if I'm better at lockpicking than that guy?
No.
I do have, this is not a call out. This is just a thing of endearment. One of my players, she forgets things every now and again, and that's fine, right? Like, Hellscapes is not D&D. Like, there's things you got to keep track of. And her motto, whenever she has to roll for something that she might not have the item for, or she might not have proficiency in, she's like, I have lockpicks. And it's like, yes, you do. That's very nice, honey. Now make the roll. Lockpicks. You're going to need mechanics tools for this. And she's like, but I have lockpicks. I'm like, yeah, but you need pliers. So no.
That's fair. So no.
Got him.
It's very fun. Whenever she says it, I'm just like,
got him.
Yeah, you do. It's not gonna help you though.
Yeah, nice, I think I explained the rolling to take a piss joke on the last episode, so I'm not gonna get super into that one. But
you did, yeah. It reminds me of one particular situation that I experienced as a player, where we were going through town. We were trying to figure out this investigation. I brought this up, I think, in episode 1 or whenever I bring up tragic backstories, we basically had to play through our downtime. Like, we didn't have downtime. We had to do every day of our downtime.
Every minute of it.
Or like our downtime was supposed to be a week, and then it went to a month, and then it maxed out at 9 weeks, and we had to play like every session. Sheesh. And we were very confused. But there was a bit where we were trying to figure out this investigation, and an arrow like pinged into like one of the hanging signs to like a store, and had a note on it. And our rogue was like, okay, I grab it. And then the GM was like, roll acrobatics. I'm like, what happens if you failed? Can you just not get the letter down?
Wait,
forever?
Wait, he had you roll to just grab the piece of mail?
Yeah, because it was sticking in the sign like 8 feet in the air.
Yeah, no,
like,
that,
what the hell?
That is an example of rolling to take a piss We don't do that here.
Yeah, no. It was I was certainly annoyed at the time. It wasn't me. It was Lupo. But yeah, I could tell he was like, what? And even I was like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a weird day. I just roll to grab the mail. I just like, who are you? Whose genuine mans is you?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
That's one of those things where it's like there's just no, that's what I was talking about, where the outcome is not interesting, nor will it change the scenario in any meaningful way. So dice don't need to hit table, you know? Like failing or not failing are about as equally interesting in that scenario. You grab the letter or you don't grab the letter, right? Like it's not, there's nothing going on. Just don't.
There was, Bud, you know who you are. And again, I know you don't do this shit no more, but I gotta bring it up. I'm putting you on blast. I'm doing it.
Look, it's good to learn from past mistakes.
Yeah, I mean, yes, but I feel like
it's also good to use examples so that listeners can actually like see situations where we've dealt with this in the past, or they might be able to recognize something that they've dealt with in the past. So like, you know, we can apologize for that all we want, but like examples are examples. There's a reason why I brought up the auras, you know, making constant Constitution saving throws. It's not because I wanted to put Josh on blast, but it's a perfect example of where the players and the DM were disappointed because there was constant rolling.
Yeah, I mean, yes, you're right, but the situation in question was that GM very much was like every kill was a how do you want to do this. And dear viewers, listeners, I personally don't like, if you're gonna do the whole Mercer how do you want to do this thing, power to you. I think it's a cool way to let your players get in on some of the action and setting a scene, and it's their little taste, right? It's their little hint of like, you have the power now, what do you do? That being said, I do not think you should use it for every kill. I think you should save it for big kills and boss fights and like, you know, nat 20 kills if you want to be real spicy. Because, and I brought this up God knows how many episodes ago, when you put players on the spot like that, a lot of the time, unless they're, you know, super good about it and they're super proactive, they're going to freeze up and it just slows the game down exponentially. This particular GM did the how do you want to do this on every kill, and then he would make us roll to see if we got to do the how do you want to do this.
What?
Yeah. So if you were like, you know, if you're like a sword master and you kill the guy and he's like, how do you want to do this? And you're like, oh, I do like a crazy Darth Maul spin to win windmill, and I dice him up a la Afro Samurai. He'd be like, okay, roll dexterity to see if you do it. And there's always this thing of like, but I got to kill. Like, you're just gonna take this moment
dead.
from me.
You asked me.
And that's another, and again, that's another great example of the outcome is not interesting if you fail, right?
It's not even that. It's literally you are handing the player the ability to do something, and then you just take it away
immediately.
Like it's not even the outcome. It's literally like, here's your player agency, this is mine now.
What even is the outcome of a failed roll in that scenario?
You just don't do it, I guess.
Yeah, like did it ever happen, Isaiah?
Yeah, it happened quite a bit actually. I to this day, I don't even know if how the DCs were resolved, if there was even a DC, or if it was just that the higher you roll, the cooler you look. But it was basically like, if you were like, okay, I want to, you know, if it's like, oh, I want to split someone like toe to balls, like forehead to balls with my greatsword, it would just be like, okay, it gets like stuck in their head. It's like, but that's not what I wanted.
But they're still dead though, right?
Yeah, like they're still dead, but it was that thing where it was like
it doesn't, that outcome is not like, why, like that's not fun or interesting for anybody. So it doesn't.
No.
Yeah, it's like you can't. There's no point.
I mean, yeah. To be fair though, like I do the how do you want to do it at the end of every combat. I usually save it for whatever the last kill is.
Well, so that's what I was saying, right? It shouldn't be every kill, but it should be at the end of combat, a big enemy.
Yeah. I just feel it out. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. If I haven't done it in a while, I'll be like, hey, you wanna do the thing? And then sometimes I don't. I just kind of feel it out. I'm not even really specific about it. And sometimes if I'm trying to like speed things up a little bit, I'll do it for the player, but I'll give it to them again later down the road, you know?
Yeah. Well, like I've already said this on podcasts. Like I just tell my players, I'm going to do it for you unless you specifically ask me.
Yeah, that works too.
Yeah, there were a few other really interesting things that happened in that game that were very like why. Like I remember at one point someone natural 20'd an enemy, and we were like rescuing some civilians from bandits, and someone like caved the bandit's head in, and the civilians were like, "No, get away from us! You're like a murderer," because he natural 20'd, and we were like, "What?" But we just what? I'm so confused.
It's like Superman saving the day, but he's covered in blood. So they're like,
that's what it was.
Get away from us, you alien! And it's like, I just literally saved you. You know what? That's it. I'm pushing the sun back into the planet.
Yeah.
Wait, now was it a situation where the player was trying to be non-lethal and then they took that away with the nat 20?
No. So like, I mean, I also don't think that you should be doing that either, TBH, because if anything, a natural 20 means that you are even more successful at being non-lethal.
Right.
No, but it was like the player had a great club or like a warhammer. They had a bludgeoning weapon. I remember specifically being a bludgeoning weapon.
Something blunt.
And he caved the dude's head in, and he was like, "I Gallagher the guy."
Oh shit, that's awesome.
And because he Gallagher the dude, blood splattered everywhere, and the people like that we just saved wanted nothing to do with us. And they were like, they weren't because it was just a random encounter, but we were like, why are you making us feel shitty for getting a cool what? So it got so bad that I would, whenever I got the how do you want to do this, my character would just be as quick and efficient as possible. Just like shove the barrel under some, because character had like gunslinger like abilities, so it would be like just shove gun under man chin, pull trigger, say bye. Like, yeah, I was very just like quick, efficient, and no bullshit.
I mean, I could see like doing something like that with the villagers if there was like a reason for like the beginning of the new Batman movie where I want to watch it. Don't you dare. All right, fuck. I'm just gonna say something like that happens in the beginning of the movie, and for that it was to show that Batman, makes people very afraid. That's his whole thing, fear. So like I can understand if that was what the DM was going for with the villagers, where he's just like, yes, you save these villagers or whatever, but the way you did it maybe was a bit harsh, or like again Gallaghering a guy. So these commoners, even though you saved them, they probably were like, oh god, don't hurt me. They were just like being dickheads. You're like, all right, we saved you guys. All right, you're safe. And like old grandma commoner was like, get away, you ruffian, and smashes you in the knee with her cane. Then that's when you're like, all right, what the fuck? I just saved you. Why are you being so rude?
I understand the sentiment of being like, oh well, the commoners in question would be uncomfortable with you crushing a man's skull in, which is like fair, but you have to kind of strike a balance between like immediate punishment and, hey, maybe you shouldn't have done it that way. It also depends on if the player was intending that to be the case or not, right? Like if they wanted to be really violent like that and stuff, that changes it too.
Yeah, well, so to me, the way that I would basically just rule it almost all the time, because I don't believe in punishing players for something that you tell them. Like, if you give someone the power to be like, how do you violently off this guy, and then you do it just that way, like I don't believe in punishing somebody. Now, if you Gallagher some dudes, I'm sorry, but I keep fucking with something on my desk, so you're gonna hear that.
I already know.
If you Gallagher someone, that's one thing, right? But if the guy is like crawling away and begging for his life, and then you walk up and talk about how you just start Neganing his ass.
Yeah, if you do the Percy scene where he shot the stagecoach guy's fingers off and started like, selling his soul is gonna go to hell, that's a little like
yeah, to that end, that's when I would be like, yes, they're afraid of you, because you're going out of your way to be cruel and unusual.
Yeah,
but I would say a quick decapitation or just a fucking 12-6 split on someone. Yeah, it's gruesome, but it's not, you're being efficient, you're doing the thing.
Yeah,
I wouldn't punish you for it just because it's ridiculous.
Granted, it is kind of one of those fine line up to interpretation things, but yeah, you don't want to. You generally don't want to punish players just for trying to be cool, you know.
Yeah, we're gonna push this one step farther because I got this one last thing to rant on with this in the same branch. This is a branch. This is just this is a source problem that branched out into a million things.
Not a full tangent.
No, not a full tangent. If you ask a player how do they want to do this, never say, "Okay, cool. What you actually do is this." Don't do that.
I think we mentioned that.
You've said that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
We've
You've said that on recording before. I said.
Have I? Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
I will say if they are like, if they don't describe it as well as they like maybe wanted to, you could be like, "I'll do you one better." You like you do their thing and then you just you add some flair to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, don't be like, I 12-6 splits someone in half. And then he goes, what you actually do is you catch him sort of like in the shoulder and you like that's not what I said. Like, don't. Yeah. You know, it's one of those things where it's like, I don't care what your interpretation is. Like, don't give me the narrative control, but you just sort of hang it over my head on a string. Just don't do that. Yeah. This is not a call out, bud. If you listen to this, love you. Kisses.
Yes. Sam, got anything else to bring us back to?
I just I had a thought and then train left the station.
Yeah, we went into a lot of places.
And then he forgored.
I mean they were relatively off topic.
They were relevant.
It's not. Yeah, they were pretty relevant.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think we were pretty good this episode. We didn't tangent too hard.
Yeah.
We were pretty on topic.
We didn't talk about smoothies once.
No, smoothies.
Smoothies.
Should you roll for your player to make a smoothie? No.
Yes.
If your player's trying to make
funny.
if the player's trying to make a smoothie while being shot at, sure. Like if the cops are trying to murder them while they make a smoothie, and it's like an 80s action movie where like a song's rolling in the background, then maybe.
I'm bleeding out here. I need that healing potion smoothie.
It's like if you mixed Boondock Saints with Big Lebowski, and the dude is like mixing a White Russian in his blender while there's gunshots coming over the table.
Yeah. Meanwhile, William Dafoe's screaming about the firefight in the background. Yeah, it makes sense.
Oh my god.
That's a great.
I need to rewatch that movie again.
That's a great scene we just invented.
Oh my god, yes.
There was a firefight.
For a few seconds, this place was Armageddon. God, I love that movie so much. God, all right, this is a real tangent. They're trying to make a third movie in that series. You cannot make that movie the way that you want it to in today's day and age. It cannot happen.
I didn't even know there was a second.
It's not very good, in my opinion.
No, it's not.
Willem Dafoe is only in it for the last 5 minutes.
Most people say that the second movie is just not as good.
No,
understandable.
Like, multitude of ways. I've watched it. It's not as good.
Yeah, no, it's not very good. I've watched it as well. It's like, it's not even mid. It's just like,
It's just, it lost the magic of the original because it was a sequel for the sake of being a sequel, it feels like.
Yeah. Spoiler alert, it ends with them going to prison and then Willem Dafoe is going to break them out of prison. That's what the third movie was supposed to be.
I see. Anyway, Sam, anything you want to close us out with?
Yeah, Dice Cool.
God, oh my god, this is not going to be a thing, is it?
Oh my god.
I told you it was going to happen.
Dice
I
Cool.
literally said you're going to hear
Annoying
me say
players.
this.
He did tell us, I just didn't believe him.
I believed him. I just wished, I hoped beyond all hope that he wasn't going to do it. And, shame on me.
We gave him too much power.
We did.
Damn. You let me say it the first time. Now it's never going to stop.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Brett,
hello.
When Matt says there was a firefight, I need you to cut Willem Dafoe and the music in the background.
Already done.
I need
it's not
that.
a copyright issue. No, but really, I do actually have something to say.
Okay.
Like, in all honesty, rolling is like a very core part of the game. Yes, I believe roleplay should be. I know, right?
Crazy.
I believe roleplay should be more more of your game, but like, you know, some people don't like that. Some people like the dice rolling more. But it is important to understand that sometimes the situation does not call for dice. Sometimes your players should just be able to do the thing. Sometimes it should just be a cool thing. And sometimes, and this is another thing, if it's an impossible task and you only know that because you're the DM and the players wouldn't know that, and you let them roll for it, sometimes that creates better tension. Because they're like, oh, yeah. Even the good person can't do it. Holy shit, what do we do?
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
Sometimes even though you know they're gonna fail, it's still worth giving them that indicator.
Yes, because it like, don't just tell your players that they're not going to be able to do a thing, unless it's like, I'm gonna try to jump over the moon. I've had a player do that.
The door is the tree sentinel. Like, you have to come back later to open the tree sentinel door.
I have a quick story. I think this is worth mentioning. Leslie, I'm not putting you on blast, but this was in your game. This is the first session in Puzzle's Fire Emblem campaign that we played in. We met an NPC companion who became like just our little mascot for the rest of the game. She was a little half-elf farm girl who we actually turned into a cleric. It was pretty cool. She was really sad, so my character couldn't figure out how to cheer her up. And I was like, I throw a bar stool through the roof. And my character started that campaign with 20 strength because human. So he's like, okay, I roll for it. I roll a natural 20. And I throw the bar stool through the roof. And he was like, about 2 minutes go by before you think, oh, it's not coming back down. And then in the sequel campaign, there was when that village opened back up because it had been attacked in our first campaign, that my character who had become the king of that country, he went back to that bar, or his son went back to that bar, and there was a perfectly cut out hole in the roof that was like, it was like a chalice toss contest for bar stools. And it was on the wall, there was a gold plaque that says current record holder King Cyrus. And that night we camped out in town, and he was like, you see something shoot across the sky. For a moment you think it could be a bar stool. And I was like, 20 years later, that bar stool's still orbiting the planet.
Nice.
I love that shit. It made no sense. It's physically impossible, but you gotta love those fucking moments so much.
Yeah.
Right. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Good times.
I love that bar stool.
I love that bar stool.
That's the episode name right there. I love my bar stool.
I love my bar stool. God, they're gonna have to get all the way to the end to get the reference. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, dude. I'm down for that.
Shit, I did have a thing I was gonna.
Okay.
I feel like at the end,
I don't know. Don't have your players roll to take a piss. That's really just the crux of it for me. That shit gets me so annoyed. That's all I got for you.
I feel like at the end of every episode, we gotta have the South Park like, I learned something today. Music playing in the background.
Yeah. Closing thoughts, Matt.
Yes.
There was a firefight?
There was a firefight.
This closeout is chaos.
This is the second bit. We're gonna have there was a firefight and X is cool.
X is cool.
On top of Percy Glaxon and everything else.
Oh my God. Like, look at all the merch we are gonna be able to sell.
Hey.
Oh my God, stop.
But,
no, okay. Yeah, oh my God, Percy Glaxon shooting into the air, screaming, "There was a firefight!" Yes. Got it. Put it on a shirt.
Sam, please get us out of here.
I don't think I can. I don't have the power. I don't have the strength. I know what I have to do, but I don't have the strength to do it.
Oh my God. We're really
Sam, chaos.
Sorry, roll strength save. Do you have the strength to do it?
No, I don't. I rolled a 1. Anyways, please like us, like the video, subscribe, check us out on Twitter. We're also
follow us on Twitter so you can follow update posts and shit in case I am say something important. I probably won't, but on the off chance I do.
But can you also like us personally? I need the validation.
I mean, yes, like us personally too. That would be nice.
I mean, I hope that they like us personally.
Like us on Twitter and in real life.
This man right here.
Yeah.
Or follow us on Twitter. You don't like on, well, you do like on Twitter. You like tweets, but you follow the account. Please follow.
Yeah.
Sam, take us out before someone else cuts you off quick.
I can't wait to be taken out myself. Anyways, thank you for watching. This has been the Sessions Canceled podcast. We'll see you next time.
Gamers.
The situation irrelevant now.
I'm gonna kill you all.